Welcome to the Coast to Coast podcast, brought to you by Play Picks and the Lines. Coming to you from the West Coast, Josh Lander, joined by my guy Nate Weitzer on the East Coast. We're kicking off this Monday with a pretty fun slate, and this one, we're taking a look at the Memphis Grizzlies, headed to Philly, take on Embiid and the 76ers. Make sure you check out Nate's great article up on playpicks.com to start the week with some best bets and player props in there for you. And do like and subscribe to that page, as we got a couple other videos for you today. Finished the week strong on our player props last Friday. Look to continue that today as well. And as always, if you do still need a FanDuel or DraftKings account, head to fdpicks.com or dkpicks.com and find those listings in your area, such as what we've got for tonight. Nate, let's get into it.
Yeah, the Grizz right now are up to +2, opened around +3, 3.5, but people are taking that action, and people are also taking the under. It's been bet down from 220 to 218.5 as we speak, so we will address those lines as they stand. Looking at the other games on this nice Monday slate, though, Clippers are +2.5 at the Pacers. That total's been bet up from 214 to 221. I would still take the over there, I think, up to about 224, the way the Pacers been playing lately. Pelicans are +7.5 at the Cavs with a total of 210 there. Two defensive-minded teams. The Miami Heat +3 at the Celtics. Low total of 208.5, as those teams often get into physical matchups. The Kings are +6 at the Knicks. The other game we break down is Raptors +2 at the Hawks tonight. Atlanta's won 7 straight. They're on a back-to-back, and that total is 220 there. Then we have Blazers -4 at OKC, and then the Warriors are -11 at Houston, total of 229 there. So the Grizz, I mean, they're back to doing what they do now that they have Desmond Bane. They've won 3 straight. Getting it done on both ends of the floor. Of course, so are the 76ers. They've won. They're now 14-3 since Christmas, averaging a nice 112 points per game in that span. But they've slowed down offensively lately. They've gone under in 8 of their last 12. Their pace is obviously always going to be slow, with Embiid being the focal point there. And they're averaging now just 109 points per game over those last 12. Really hit a snag against the Sacramento Kings of all teams, which is, the worst team defending the paint in their last game out. And they trailed by double digits in that game, climbed back to win a low-scoring game, 103-101. Went below their team total prior to that against the Lakers. I think there's some outliers in terms of their scoring output recently. You look at Embiid dropping that 50 in 27 minutes against Orlando. You look at them playing the Spurs in San Antonio and getting 115. You look at the Pelicans resting guys and giving up 117. I don't think that Philly's going to score a ton in this game. And I think that's why the under is a good starting point to kind of revolve around. But really, I mean, if you're not going to score with Memphis, you're going to be in trouble. So I think Memphis should actually be favored here despite the venue. I mean, they've been the best team against the spread all year, have they not? I mean, especially outside the division, they're 30-13, both straight up and against the spread. They're 14-9 straight up when they're underdogs. It's not like it's unlikely for them to win when they're, only slight underdogs. I think you might as well just take the plus money on the win. You don't need those 2 points. But really, I'm leaning on is their defense. They have Steven Adams back now. They have both Brandon Clark and Jaren Jackson to throw at Embiid at times. And they're 6th in points per game allowed, 7th in opponent field goal shooting, 3rd in rebounding rate in their last 3. Those are just key numbers when you're going up against Philly. If you can limit their shots, their good looks from the field, and keep Embiid off the free throw line, you have a really good chance of maybe even holding them under 100 the way they play. The last 3 times these teams have met, Embiid has not played, and Memphis has won all 3. Ja didn't play in the last one, and Memphis still dropped 126, kind of an outlier there in December. But the thing that does run concurrent through all 3 is Philly shooting a putrid 21% combined from deep, with a really bad assist-to-turnover ratio as well against Memphis. So it's not just about the fact that Embiid happens to have his worst splits of his career against Memphis. He averages 13 points per game with an 87 offensive rating. A lot of that's older, much older data. He hasn't played them since February 2020, when he actually got injured after 18 minutes, dropped 10 points, and then, had one of his tweaks there to leave that game. So we don't necessarily know how he's going to perform against Steven Adams and the crew here, but I just think that one team is far more reliant on a superstar. The other team has a superstar that builds up everybody around him. And Ja is averaging insane numbers on the road. His last 37 points per game, 8 rebounds, 8.5 assists, 121 offensive rating. Memphis is covered in 13 of their last 15. I just feel great riding with them right now. And if you're going to give me a little value because Philly's been hot, I'll take that juice all day.
Yeah, sounds good to me. I mean, I like Memphis for sure in this one as well. The under feels right when you kind of look at, obviously you talk about Embiid needing to slow things down. Memphis wants to speed things up. We know that. And that's why, I often like to take a look at what does the opponent that Memphis is taking on do in the paint? That's where Memphis loves to score. What do they do in terms of turning the ball over, limiting turnovers? What do they do in terms of limiting their opponent's fast break points? Because that's what we know Memphis wants to do. You take a look at Philly. They are very good in the paint and defensively, not surprisingly. They've got Joel Embiid. He had a steal the other night that looked like it was off of 2K. The dude went up to dunk it, and he just grabbed it out of his hand and pulled it down with one hand and then started a fast break where he dribbled between his legs between two guys at half court and then finished a layup. So that was the most insane thing I've ever seen somebody nearly 300 pounds do standing 7'3". So that does add up to why they're so good at the paint defense. But where they are not as good, right, in terms of limiting turnovers, they do turn the ball over a good amount. They limit their opponents' points off of turnovers to a decent degree, which is also what you like, if you're going to take on Memphis. But that, in terms of Memphis's other ways to score, they are scoring with a ton of assists as well, and Philly gives up there. So I think the under does look really good compared, when you do drill down a little bit deeper into what Memphis does well on offense versus what Philly doesn't do well on defense. But I think it all also just comes down to the fact that if you don't think Embiid is going to put up 35 points, look, Tobias has come back a bit in his last 7 or 8 games. He's actually averaging 20 points in that span, shooting pretty good splits, averaging about 8 boards and 4 assists in that time frame. So he's doing some playmaking as well, which they need him to do, and he's coming back around. But at the same time, like you said, in recent history, especially for these two teams, you look at what they do with and without those guys that you mentioned that came back now. Steven Adams, they're much better now, on defense, which is crucial as we know that they can score. We know Ja's going to get to the rim and be able to get up against other players. It's going to be a matter of how Joel Embiid is playing tonight on both ends of the floor. Defense, fine. Offense, yeah, I think that he's going to have a little bit more trouble now. Obviously, that Memphis has their defensive lineups back in and some guys that can actually stop the scoring in the paint. And a couple other quick things for why I do like Memphis. Obviously, we mentioned Desmond Bane. He seems to be that sort of that secondary scorer that they need. Dylan Brooks still out. Jaren Jackson Jr. not really looking like himself as of late either in his last few. I mean, he might just be an 18-point a game, 6 rebound kind of versatile kind of guy that's not really ever going to dominate to the extent that we need him to, but that they need him to. But I think we found that second banana in Desmond Bane and what he means to this team. Not only obviously in terms of their win-loss, just their offense in general, the difference in their defensive rating when he sits, drops about a few points, as you mentioned earlier as well. So I think all of this, leads to me still feeling good about Memphis as my favorite way to bet this game. But if you wanted to tease it to get that under up a little bit as well, that's something that I feel good about. I'm not worried about this spread, just a little bit worried about taking that total as it currently sits 218.5. Hasn't really moved as we mentioned. And in the recent history for the 76ers, at least, you look at the average amount of points that their games are scoring, not getting close to that. So that's 1B bet under, but feel really, really good about Memphis being able to handle tonight on the road as a really, really, really good road team. Yeah,
and you mentioned Philly's prowess in the paint. That's huge for this becoming a low-scoring game because Memphis scores the highest percentage of points inside the arc. I just look at this game as who can actually hit a 3 in this game. It's not just Philly in their last 3 meetings. Memphis has also had some dreadful shooting outings against Philly, which is a great team. They're third in defensive efficiency over their last 3 and over their last 12, in fact. And I just don't know where Philly's going to find that outside shooting presence, especially Furkan Korkmaz questionable tonight. Seth Curry's been playing, but he is not healthy. In his last 3, 2 were before he came back from that ankle tweak, and he's shooting 23% from deep and averaging just 7 points per game. So it's really Desmond Bane is the one guy I'm willing to trust shooting even an open shot in this game. Which is partially why you got to like Memphis. But in the NBA today, if you're not going to hit threes, the game is not going to go over, especially if one team is playing at the slowest pace, especially if teams are top 10 in free throws allowed. If it keeps getting bet down, then I love your idea to just get Memphis a few points and get the under up a little bit too. But the numbers are definitely in support, especially when Philly's at home, 15-8 to the under. Yep. When they're underdogs, if it does swing all that way, they're 15-4 to the under. They're 21-13 to the under when they're just on normal 1-day rest. And they've not been as good at home in terms of winning, 9-14 against the spread. So again, Memphis 17-7 against the spread on the road, 22-12 against the spread after a win. They're just a team that's riding a big wave right now. They're dangerous in the regular season and possibly beyond. So I would take them on that teaser if you want to play it safe. But if you just want to take Memphis money line and under, you can get out close to plus 300 and take a bolder bet there to say they're going to win and they're going to hold Philly under their team total, which is about 109 right now. I think Philly would probably go under that.
Yeah, no, I feel good about that money line bet for Memphis to get a little bit extra juice there. I mean, even just looking at what Philly does as a home favorite, you mentioned 9-14 against the spread at home. They're at 7-10 when they're home favorites. They're actually getting outscored in those matchups when they're home favorite right now by about 1.5 points a game. This little spread does seem like it adds up to that. One quick player prop too. You mentioned Desmond Bane, 100%. Would love to follow you on that with him in terms of him being the guy that you think can definitely hit those threes out of everybody that's playing tonight on either side of the floor. His point prop is at 17.5. He's gotten 20 points at least in 13 of his last 15 games on the road. He's got some really good, some good road splits there as well that don't really falter too far from his home numbers either. So you can feel pretty good about taking him as well. Maybe a little teaser looking ahead to the player props video there, but we'll talk about that in that one. Do like and subscribe to the page, as that is all the time we have for you today. Got a couple other videos up for you, like I mentioned, that player props video we're looking to stay super hot with. So until we see you next, happy betting.